on time. So at 9 o'clock New Zealand time exactly. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a background in terms of how today is going to work. So if you have any questions, please can you put up your hand or add it to the chat box. So just give a bit of a, hands up on the screen, because it is quite difficult to navigate sometimes across, what's being chatted about or people just chatting. So you're welcome to ask questions at any stage during this, but please just put your hand up so I can actually see it, and then just open that up. So yes, the poll is the primary thing that I just want to understand the group a little bit better. So please complete that. And as we go through this, I'm assuming that you understand a little bit about, business architecture, not a lot, but this is why I need to understand what you have in the poll. All right, so firstly, my name is Deirdre Caren. I am the director and founder of Agora Insights. I'm also a business architect. I've been running training now for several years. And our focus today is really to keep you up to date with what's happening in the business architecture certification area, as well as just some tips and tricks with your learning and preparation and study. Okay. So firstly, business architecture comes with your BIZBOK guide. So those who are part of the Business Architecture Guild, you will notice that there's a BIZBOK guide. So BIZBOK is just the business architecture body of knowledge. And every year it gets updated. So the reason for this is that it's community-led. So for instance, as you go through your training of your BIZBOK or the body of knowledge, every year there are groups that work together to improve certain aspects of that particular area in your BIZBOK. And so originally they used to update every 6 months. But at the moment, we have updates yearly. And sometimes these are minor and sometimes these are significant. So I will explain how that affects your exam, but also what is, what are your next steps? Okay. Click on the button. All right, so this is what the badge looks like for those who don't have it. And we offer obviously a training program that helps you get ready to write your BIZBOK exam. BIZBOK exam is Certified Business Architect. And, as I was explaining, your BIZBOK is your body of knowledge. So what are the key things we need to learn today? Now, in our training, so obviously Agora trains anybody who wants to be a business architect to become a certified business architect. And we've broken our course down into 24 modules. So some are longer than others. But the primary changes that you are looking at today is there's some big changes, there's some minor changes, there's some diagrammatical changes, and then there's quite a significant change to your reference models. So your reference models are really around, what would you do if you're working in a particular industry like finance, etc. This does not affect your exam at all. So even though there have been some significant additions and changes within your BIZBOK reference models, that won't affect your exam at all. All right, so I'll come back to this in a minute, but I just wanted to show you this first. So as business analysts or business architects, we really have a framework in which we work in. So you'll see that this looks slightly different to the image that you have in your BIZBOK. And we've done this intentionally in terms of your training and how to lay out all the components of business architecture. So we have capabilities and value streams, information mapping and organizational mapping, and these form the foundations of business architecture. So what is a capability? What is a value stream, information mapping, and organization? Then we have what I refer to as kind of the ins and outs of business architecture mapping. And this includes strategies, initiatives, products, stakeholders, metrics, and obviously policies. Now, policies is actually a really nice cross map to bring into your organization, especially if you're looking at digital transformation. It really is quite helpful. I'm going to just end this poll now. And I'm going to show you the results. Just so that you get a quick idea before I move on further. So there have been some changes in what we would call our core architecture or our architectural framework. And there's only three main changes. So there are some minor changes to the capabilities and how we manage capabilities. There are a lot of visual changes, but still minor, made to value streams. And I'll show you, what that all means. And then there's some minor clarification, more like wordsmithing at this stage, to stakeholders. Now, it's really important when you're studying for your exam that you understand how the different releases impact your exams. So for instance, the current exam is on BIZBOK 8.5. And so the way that we structured the course is when there are minor changes, then we update the course in line with your BIZBOK 11, for instance. But when there are major changes, we don't update that until such a time that the actual exam questions change. So this is very important, especially for those who, let's say you spent a year studying, either BIZBOK 9 or BIZBOK 10, and now you're worried that you're going to have to start again and study, BIZBOK 11. So no, you don't need to do that. What you do need to know is that there might be some minor name changes here and there, but your exam is still at 8.5. This will change. So approximately in August, September, there will be a change to the exam. And primarily, I think that change is going to be around the changes we've discussed here, and also looking at strategy to execution, which seems to be a real focus point for business architecture at the moment in terms of business digital transformation and digital enhancement. So these are important changes, but you need to understand the process. So for those who are studying, to get certified, and you've been doing it for a while, it is best that you do this probably before August, September, you write your exam. So please keep that in mind in your preparation. It's really, really important. So you can see there's about 38% of people who in this session have said that they're busy studying for the exam at the moment. So pencil the date in August, September. Make sure that you are writing your exam prior, just so that all your learning is in line. So in our course and in our program, we do make sure that the questions for each of your modules is covered. All right, so let's go into a little bit more detail around your changes. So firstly, capabilities are very important, part of what we do as business architects. So capabilities, there are very minor changes here. There has been language update to your capability instance. Now, for those who know what capability instance is, a capability instance is primarily about the moment in time when you're using a capability to do something within the organization. So BIZBOK has updated the wording for that. And I think that's good because I get asked about that a lot and it can be, a little bit frustrating here and there. All right, next, mapping guidelines. All right, so under capability mapping guidelines 1 and 2, there's been a better explanation of business objects. Yay, because that's another thing that can be a little bit confusing for people who first, studying capabilities and business objects. And business objects appear in many of our blueprints. So there is a clarification in BIZBOK 11, which will give you more insight. So it won't affect your studies, it won't affect your exam, but it will allow you to really understand that a little bit better. And then there has been a replacement in image 2.2.12, and then just general updates. So very minor, nothing to worry about. If you're studying, relax, everything is awesome. So don't worry about any of that at this particular stage. Next, we're going to look at value streams. Now, value streams, when you look at the change log, it sounds like there's been a really dramatic change. Oops, let me just click on the right button here. It sounds like there's been this massive dramatic change when in fact, there hasn't been a huge change in value streams. So value streams, let me just stop the share. Value streams, what they've really done is they've changed the actual value stream stage wording. So it sounds really, busy and fancy that they've made all these changes, but you'll see with the knowledge, the images around your knowledge base have not changed. So the relationships have not changed. There've been minor words like they've added definition to description. So you can, when you are doing a value stream stage and you're defining that value stream stage, they've just added some words to it. And the same thing in this image, 2.4.12, they've taken out 2 stages and they've done some wording changes. So let me give you an example. So in our training, we talk about taking a trip, and I like to use a consistent theme. And you'll notice in BIZBOK that sometimes when you're talking about a particular, value stream, they might use different examples, but from a training perspective, I think it's easier just to use the standard examples. So this particular one, take a trip, in BIZBOK, it used to say ticket trip. And now they've changed the word to ensure permission. And so this changelog that I just showed you is basically, so this entire thing here is basically all the changes related to ensure permission, which I do think is probably pandemic COVID related. And BIZBOK uses the term, well, the change log says to be in line with industry standards. So I'm not sure that that's the actual truth, but it's certainly, in our day-to-day environment, having gone through all of these changes over the last 2 years, I suppose that's valid. But what I wanted to show you, you can see that it's such a minor change, but it's got such a long change log that it can make somebody quite anxious. Don't worry about this one either. And this is why I say your primary architectural models have not really had a huge impact. All right, so that's value streams. Did anyone have a question? Because now's probably a good time just between those two. Hopefully that's clear. All right, I'll leave it at that for now. Right, then another really minor change to stakeholders. So they've updated some examples. So they've clarified the stakeholder mapping principles, which is good. So there's been a better definition of what mapping stakeholders is. So kudos to the guild. And you'll see that they've specifically dealt with principle 4. Oh, by the way, what I wanted to point out is that where I've highlighted in yellow here, it means that these will be the changes that will be happening to the training. So for those who are currently in training, don't panic, and you will get a printout of the changes, but you can see what I will be adjusting in the training for the areas that I see fit. So for instance, you'll see that there will be no updates in the training in module 2 because I haven't highlighted them, but in capabilities, the definitions and the guidelines here will be updated. I checked what was happening with capabilities, and the definition wasn't compelling enough to significantly change what's in the training already. So just keep that in mind. When you see the highlighted areas, those are the bits that our team will be adjusting. So similar to the stakeholders, you are looking at clarifying your stakeholder mapping principles. So that's just giving you a better conversation. And then there's also the stakeholder category, which is just a table that has been changed. And then there's also revised image 2.83, which is, again, they use the term to align with best practices. It's just some word changes. What has changed is the image itself. So if you look at the knowledge base, so they've updated that image. What they've done is they've just connected capabilities to value stream stage. That wasn't there before, so this will be added as well. Again, this won't affect your exam in any way because, you know, that's what does not have an impact on your 8.5 exam. All right, now let's look at the big fellas. What has changed? So I'm going to go back to what I mentioned previously, which is what are the big changes? So there are 3 large changes, and this is to process modeling. They have completely redone process modeling. They've redone the knowledge base. They've redone, you know, the whole way in which it works. So this is a completely new chapter. So for those who are studying now and plan to write their exam, you know, before August, as I mentioned, it would be a good idea to actually, you know, ignore that for now and just focus on what's in your training. But for those who plan to, you know, do this later, pause these chapters for now and go back to them when the new exam comes out, because I imagine they're going to reword this and make several changes. So they've also used the term dynamic rules-based routing and or routing, depending on your accent. And so they've used this technique a lot more than ever before in the BIZBOK, which made me wonder, okay, I'm not quite sure why, but it certainly does show that there has been a lot of influence in this. So dynamic rules-based routing has been added to case management and requirements. So both of those have also been changed. So the biggest change obviously is the process modeling, because that's been redone. But then your dynamic rules routing, that is also quite a significant change within those modules. So, you know, when we talk about case management, we talk about things like, let's say, healthcare, where a healthcare worker creates a case or a lawyer creates a case. But now they've looked at how dynamic rules routing comes into their case management and how dynamic rules comes into requirements as well. So when I investigated it, it did look quite different to what I expected. So again, don't worry about this now if you're preparing for your exam, but certainly go into your BIZBOK and just see what those changes are, because they do matter. All right. And then, as I mentioned, we've gone through the minor changes of capabilities, value streams, stakeholder mapping. So, you know, it's not going to change your world so much. And then the changes in the knowledge base diagrams. Let me take you there at the moment. So, as I mentioned, your process, so your knowledge base, we've had some changes to your stakeholders. There hasn't been any changes to your knowledge brief, your knowledge base meta model. But what I do want to highlight is that what I've noticed in BIZBOK, that they've started to create links to things. So for instance, in part 5 of your BIZBOK, they now refer to other documents. So it becomes a little bit challenging sometimes because it's not all in the document itself. And I do find, the BIZBOK is quite difficult because although you can highlight things and you can, kind of make notes and those type of things, you can't copy or create notes by yourself or print it. And people have asked me, it's highly unlikely you'll get a printable format for BIZBOK. So you're just going to have to work around that. We obviously do have a study guide, which that was the primary reason why I did it, was to ensure that you have a workable document for those who do need it to understand your chapters better. All right, so module 11 in our course, but it's part 3.4 in your BIZBOK. Now, I do get questions as well as to why did I design it this particular way? And the design is unique. It was something that I worked on a couple of years ago, remodeled the whole BIZBOK, because as a training provider, there's certain things that you have to learn before other things. So it was very important to me that we covered the foundational pieces first, and then we went into our strategies, etc. And then we go into our cross-mapping with other parts of the business. So for processes are largely about what are we, what are the processes that the business follows? But remember, as architects, we are not process focused. We look more at value streams, and we look more at how do the value streams, what processes might we use with value streams? And I'll give you an example now. So The knowledge base has changed. So figure 3.4. Let me just catch up here. Also 3.4.4, and they've added an example to the knowledge base and take a trip. So there has been some wordsmithing, but they've actually added a case explanation. So a lot more general explanations redone, some language changes. But not something that would really shock anyone. It's more like it aligns a little bit better. So I think they've done a good job in this. But as you can see, the actual knowledge base is quite different. It is not the same design that we had in the previous release. So this will be updated. As you can see, the yellow will be updated in the training. And even with this design now, if we were to update it tomorrow, which we won't, it'll be later in the month, but even if we were to update it, it won't have an impact on your study at this stage, because you don't get questioned on the diagram in your exam. So going back to, what this would look like. So they've improved, so they've now linked the value streams better and improved the process diagrams. Now, I have a thing about diagrams that cross lines. It's a personal thing, and so when I do see diagrams in BIZBOK where their lines are crossing, I redraw them because I can't handle it. I think it's something to do with OCD, or I'm not sure. So please be aware that the diagrams that we use in the training meet kind of your BPM standards, and just so that it's not intended to trick you, but I like to use the standards in the diagram. So if we're looking at processing a fee, then we'd have the associated diagram with it. So in the actual BIZBOK guide, you will see there are changes in the wording and how they've changed this structure as well. So they've added things or removed things in the actual text here, which is not at all impactful in your life. But they have improved the understanding of processes. You might find some of the diagrams don't fit with what I'm providing you, but that is purely, like I said, for my own purposes. I do not like those kind of changes. All right, next. I don't like those process diagrams. All right, the next thing is dynamic rules routing. So as you can see, this has been, sorry, shouldn't say processes, should say requirements and case management. So there's been some changes. I think that I've probably loaded the wrong one, but the changes to both of these modules, modules 12 and modules 14, which is part 3.5 and 3.8, has been the integration of the dynamic rules-based routing. And so they do use this loan as an example, and they have also added take a trip. So we will be adjusting the take a trip version in our training, but as I mentioned, this isn't going to have an impact on you right now in terms of your exams. So it's better to kind of leave it where it is at the moment than to try and learn the new bit. But for those who have been certified and are already a business architect, and you've already figured a lot of this stuff out, go have a look, go see what they have. And those who are already part of our program, you'll see it coming in over the next couple of months. All right. And the reason I don't rush it is because I don't want to stress people out through the process. This is very important because often, oh, I think I've put the, I don't know if this is now showing on yours, but often what happens is people find it quite stressful when there are changes in the actual material, and it's completely out of our control. You know, I cannot dictate what changes happen in BIZBOK. So we respond as best we can for our learners. Now we're going to look at just going back to the knowledge brief. So the knowledge base is really about our storage. It's about all of our business architectural diagrams and how they all come together. So you'll notice that BIZBOK is trying to give you best practice. It's trying to, you know, explain things clearly, keep up to date. And like I said, there's this community participation. So you're part of a community group, and you will, you know, you'll see these changes reflected by those who have good, let's say, industry experience. So all of this is building this knowledge base at the end of the day. And these other extensions are important as well, because we, you know, most businesses have processes. So how does it link to your value streams? These all have impacts. Just want to show you the exam structure at the moment. And I imagine some of it will change. Now, the exam, really, you have the fundamental concepts. So that's what we call module 0 in your training. And then you have your core mapping. So how do you map capabilities? You know, what are the colors that you use? There's also this question around laser-like, which is still in your BIZBOK, you know, laser-like precision. So these are the core areas around the mapping of those four from modules 1 to 4, which is capabilities, value streams, information mapping, and organizational mapping. So those you need to know. And then you've got extended models, which as per our diagram is your, you know, your strategy, your policies, your products, stakeholders, metrics, and so forth. And then you've got related business disciplines. So the change is happening here. So the big change that you're seeing, you're going to see it between modules 11 to 14. And as I mentioned, they've rejigged that, they've changed the knowledge-based diagrams, and they have added dynamic rules much more extensively. Business architecture performance, that hasn't changed. So that's module 15 for us. So there's no impact for you there. Module 10, you'll see that we break module 10 up, but basically this is around the practice of business architecture. So it's looking at your role, the governance, the scenarios, etc. So this is quite a big part, and you'll notice most of your questions in module 10 are around cross-mapping. Cross-mapping your basic architecture with the other disciplines. So it's quite a big component, but none of this has changed. So yay, that's good. They haven't changed the scenarios. So the 12 scenarios that are there are still there. You might find some language changes, like now and then there's some, you know, a few things that change, but I wouldn't say that there's been anything significant enough that will alter your learning. And then there's been no changes in your IT alignment, you know, the last modules that we deal with, 16 to 23, which is around enterprise architectural alignment, etc. So that's all remained the same, which is good news. So here, keep a lookout in this area. Minor changes, you know, here. And then in module 10, just be aware of any knowledge-based changes that may pop up, and then you'll see that change coming in. So yeah, that's basic. Oh, the one thing I did want to add is that there are 3 new modules or 3 new parts that fit in here in your sorry, click too fast, in your BIZBOK 11. And these 3 new ones include strategy to execution, customer experience, as well as operations. And these 3 are likely to be in your next exam. So keep a lookout for these modules, because this is probably where your biggest change is going to occur. I mean, we will have a discussion with them prior to see if there's any learning objectives that are coming into that. But I don't see it as being, your critical areas, which are these ones. So good news overall with the changes, that they are manageable and they're not all over BIZBOK. We have had some changes that have been all over, and it can be really difficult, especially last year. But this year, I'm very pleased that the changes are simple and, manageable, which is good. Okay, questions about exams, about preparation, about business architecture, about BIZBOK? Got a very quiet crew today. No one got a question for me. I see a couple of my there you go, checking my things. Any modifications to industry reference? Yes, thanks, Overdue. There is significant changes to reference models. Actually, I'm going to share this screen with you. So let me just stop this share here, and I'm just going to go through the change log. Hold on. And you should, let me just exit this. Ready for the dynamic narration. All right. Hopefully everyone can see this, the change log. So the change log, as I said, you can see that they've used terms like under capability map, guideline 2, or this image. They've changed the example. Oh, so that's capabilities. Value streams. So you can see it says updated figure 2.4.8 to align with industry standards. And it was literally that one change. So you can see with the change log, it can be quite overwhelming when you look at it, especially because it doesn't specify exactly what that change is, like what does industry standards mean. But luckily, I worked through this for you, so you know what's going on now. All right, so in terms of your modules, you've got service design. They've added a knowledge base to that, and this is module 3.13, which I said is probably going to be in your next exam. So this is one of the extra 3 that will likely come into your training portfolio soon, with a disclaimer to say that this is not being tested as yet. So nothing significant around module 10. Case, so there's just a link. Remember I said to you that they've been adding links to BIZBOK, which is interesting. But yes, the changes are to the financial services industry, to manufacturing, some minor changes, healthcare, insurance, the common, and then, so you can see there's several changes there. And then telecoms. So there's been quite a lot of changes in that. They have updated the dynamic rules image. So you can actually download the full image, which is what I did today, which is great. And then your meta model. So that has now been moved to a website. So as I said, that can be quite challenging, moving, the entire thing to a website. All right, so hopefully that answers the one question. Okay, yeah, that's good. Haven't signed up yet for CBA. Will the course content be updated to reflect the updates? Yes, absolutely. I mean, firstly, the course is for anybody. You have to be able to at least think in systems thinking. Like, I'm not saying that anybody can do this. What I am saying is you don't have to have been immersed in the role to actually start studying how to be a business architect. You do have to be a systems thinker, which is important. But so the course, we try bring it in slowly, and you'll notice we're doing a lot of changes around the visualization. We're doing changes around what we choose as examples, because the examples change quite a lot in BIZBOK. And so it doesn't really make sense for us to change the examples all the time. So I certainly am going to start using a theme throughout this, so that if they do change examples, it might be more of a reference than the actual training itself. So all very important components of making sure that you've been trained with what you need to know. Same thing will happen with the study guide. The study guide will be the essential bits that you need to know. I don't like any too much information is not helpful when you're studying for your CBA. So absolutely make sure that you just focus on the process that we give you, because we're here to help you with your certification, and just learn how to be a business architect. You're welcome, Eric. Simple approach. Yes. Yes, you did get it. I remember, on top of traveling around the world. Thanks. With annual updates, will we need to write exams every year? No. Really good question. You do not need to retake the exam, but you do need to have continuous development points. And you can get these in two ways. So if you are already a certified business architect, like Eric, for instance, you can either just attend the webinars that the Guild offers. So I might be wrong, but I think you need to earn 30 points. So you can attend the webinars, and you can go to the recorded webinars as well, fill in a question and earn your points. That's a simple way to do it, and then you stay up to date. So you only have to stay up to date, and you have to earn some continuous development points. Obviously, with our training, you can claim those development points as well. So this is how it works. Because you've trained, you write your exam, you can then claim the training after you've got your certification as your continuous development points. So it gives you another 3 years. So that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, so once you've done it, you've done it. Mm, being a business analyst really does help. As long as you don't think like a process engineer, and you look to understand capabilities and value streams, because these are fundamentally different concepts. And obviously I've worked in both roles. They're fundamentally just different concepts, and it's so important that you understand business architecture concepts before you apply your business analysis role, because this is what I find a lot of BAs do. They try clip their experience into business architecture. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. You want to make sure that you are understanding the principles of business architecture before you try bring all your experience together. So that's my advice. Good to hear your systems thinking. And, you know, for systems thinking, it's about pulling a whole bunch of different pieces together. You know, if you're building a house, and I use this all the time, if you're building a house, you have to think about a lot of things. So you got to think about the plumbing, you got to think about the kitchen, you got to think about the windows, you got to think about the door. And this is what we'd call systems thinking. And so you wouldn't design a house only thinking about one thing. And so in, you know, when we're doing a strategy to execution, this is where business architecture is great, because you pull in all of your designs into this picture of, okay, here goes the plumbing, here goes the kitchen, here goes, you know, the doors and the windows. And this is why it's so important to understand what those principles are, because I often use the example between a business analyst and a business architect. It's almost like the business architect is like a building architect. They design the house. And a business analyst is like a surveyor, where they are deep diving into those requirements, those details, the costs, the roles, etc. So they have very different purposes in the projects, but their relationship is really, really close, because they can come together quite well. But as long as you understand those purposes, it makes a lot more sense when you're studying. What are you studying for? And for this, you're studying to design blueprints for your organization. All right, I hope I didn't miss any questions. Okay. Yes, so you will get annual updates with BIZBOK. And, you know, feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. Obviously, we do have, I know everyone who's worked with me, you can go look at the first module completely free. There's a few downloads you can use for your preparation. I do webinars regularly. There's past webinars, which I did on strategy, on various other things that it's all free, and you can go have a look at it. There's no no tricks. And, you know, I like to build the community and make sure that we, you know, the practice of business architecture is well understood and works for everybody. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll probably end the session. If anyone wants to talk face to face, that's all right. You're all welcome. Nice to see some of my regulars, Thomasina, Mike, Rachel. Oh, it's great to see you guys again. It's hard to see in the wall of names. You're welcome. Let me stop the share. All right, so expect an email from us. You're welcome. Soon. after we've done everything that we need to do. And that's your update for BIZBOK. Yay. Yes, this will be recorded and will be available. You will get a notification via email. All right, I'm going to end this meeting now. Thank you.